So I'm going to mix and match the keywords provided by Dr. Webster in the library assignment, and I'm specifically searching for these keywords within the abstract. I would recommend selecting abstract or even title if you're going to do one or two, because that will give you a more focused search, and that will only return articles where all these words are in the abstract. If I wanted to cast a broader net and I just wanted to see everything that was out there on any of these topics, I would switch the ands to ors, because by selecting and, it is only going to return sources that have all of these words in the abstract. I am going to click peer-reviewed below here, and I'm also going to scroll down in the filter methodology, select empirical study. So this will rule out sources that are, for instance, literature reviews or meta-analyses. I click search, and right now I'm still pretty broad, but not super broad. I have almost 200 results, and instead of organizing it by year, I'm going to sort by relevance. So these studies are some examples of recent-ish research done on the topic of learning, memory, and emotion. So some of them might look very interesting just from your search results. So that is something to keep in mind going forward, although some may be older than you would hope. So the journals that they're published in, you will see below the author's name. You can also see a list of the journals that most frequently publish these results in source. So I click on source, I see, okay, Neurobiology of Learning and Memory has 9. That would be something to consider. Journal of Neuroscience, 8. Neuroimage, 6. Neuroimage is something that I could list under 2, but then I would want to consider if that might be the most appropriate for question number 3, because I likely do not have access to imaging software. So these are some examples of journals that publish articles in these, that publish experiments specifically on these topics. I can also go to psych articles. So the difference between PsycInfo and psych articles, PsycInfo is an abstracting and indexing service, which means that it collects a lot of research in psychology that may or may not be easily accessible. So things that you would get through PsycInfo, a lot of it we do have, right? And you would click the check for full text button, and we have it, great, or we could interlibrary loan it. Psych articles are held directly in PsycNet because these journals are published by the APA. So if I click on source, these are some more journals that I could list under question 1. And some of them I see are overlapping, specifically behavioral neuroscience, some maybe not so much. So I click on a journal, And from this record page, I can click this Journal TOC button if it is held and published by APA, and it will bring me to the page for the journal. Here it is showing me all the studies that were published in that edition of the journal, but on the sidebar I can look at the most recent one, so September 2018. And here is where I can get a sense of what recent articles were published by this journal. So if I see one that maybe looks interesting, I can click PDF and I can review it to ask myself, does this look like a possible candidate for replication, knowing what I can gather from the methodology, knowing what I can have access to here on campus, and knowing the timeline. So would this be a feasible study? If I want to get this source into Mendeley, I would go to the records page, click export, and I would export it. I could export it to Mendeley like I did, or I could just export it to reference software. Either way, it's going to download an RIS file, which I can then open up Mendeley and import. So I'm signed in. I can click the Add button, find that RIS file, click Open, and there it is. I can also download that PDF and add it to Mendeley as well, so I have everything in one place. And in this case, I can just go down to Add Files, and attach it to this record. So now I see that little PDF icon. If I double click it, I can open up the PDF in Mendeley, and I can highlight and add notes where appropriate. And these can be shared with your group. So close out of that. Now to find more sources, down here on the record page still, it will show me both keywords and index terms. So I can sort of search through any of these. Index terms are within a controlled vocabulary. Keywords tend to be author provided, so that's the phrases that authors are using to describe their study. So if I wanted to go into one, I can, and this is going to be a huge results list, right? Because this is everything that is sort of tagged with the idea of it's about aging. So we have a lot. I can search within the results either by index term or keyword. And so you can see through the first 3 index terms, searching within those, I have one source, which is mine, and I also have another source, which does seem to be focused mostly on the idea of aging. So by mixing and matching these index terms, these keywords, based on the aspects of the study that I am most interested in pursuing and studying, that is one way to find more relevant sources. You'll also see the related content on the sidebar, which can be hit or miss, but it is definitely worth checking out. And the references of the source that you are starting out with, maybe your replication study. You would definitely want to check out the sources that they have cited. By going back to advanced search, and I'm actually going to do it in this window, I can again mix or match my index terms or my keywords. So let's do it with some keywords this time. And I'm specifying that I want these to be in the keywords. I can either search for peer-reviewed journal articles, or I can search within document type and look specifically for a book chapter. So are there any book chapters on these with these 2 keywords? Yes.